When tapering a stave, the first stave is kind of a trial and error. You have to figure out really how much you need to take off for it to fit into your base correctly. The first one is generally a test case. And what you just do is you are going to just take and thin that down and take off as much as you need to. And then, of course, I always use sandpaper and I sand it and I make it smooth. With a round basket, you can taper on one side. If you want to taper on two sides, you can. And basically what happens with tapering on two sides is you just flip it over and you take off some. And then if it's a little bit pointy, you just can trim that right off, which is nice. And no matter what you do to taper, the key is to use sandpaper to make sure that this is nice and smooth. If I want to taper something, I practice and I figure out how much I need to taper. I take my first and I say, okay, that's going to be perfect for something that I want that size.
So are you pushing it all the way up to the holes?
Yeah.
And then using the dowels to
stop it.
To stop it.
Yeah. Okay. And like I said, on this, I would probably just hit it with a little sandpaper right on, you know, and make that nice. Now, that's what we say about the very first stave. It's always a little bit of trial and error. You want to figure out the best place to taper, how much you want tapered. The beauty of the stave shaver is everyone will be identical. If I taper this and I say this is where I want this to be tapered and I know I like this in this one and it's perfect the way it is, then every one that I do from now on in here, and I use a stave shaver myself and I did 800 of them. And I tapered 800 staves for a class. Every single stave is identical.
Yep.
Okay, because
so they're going in the channel and then you're using the chisel to shave it down.
Correct. And it's a matter of figuring out how many staves you need, which is based on your circumference, based on your size of your weaver, figuring out, and then figuring out how much you need to taper. Now, in this case, where I said, oh, you know, this is a very long taper. But one thing you can always do after you've done it is clip this off right here, and you have the perfect taper. And again, sandpaper is needed every time. I'm kind of a stickler with the sandpaper. I always like to have that. So you figure out how much you need to taper by your basket, and then you put it in the channel. All right. Now just say this is a rather 5 millimeter. This is a very, very, very thick stave for a small basket. So that's why there's all different channels, because if I were to be making a 1-inch basket, that's how much my taper would be. So I would have to make sure that I'm tapering all that for my little tiny basket.